Hey, Kaka. Utamuintroduce.
All right, everyone, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for today's sessions on the open basics writing for impact. And today we are joined by a friend of Liberty Sparks, for some time, all the way from Nigeria. Tijani Abdullahi is the managing editor at the Liberalists, which is a freedom focused, really an outlet, for writing, for reporting, that is focused on freedom, liberty, and such issues across Nigeria, across the continent. I hope that by the end of this session, is going to be sharing a lot more with us, with what he's done, including his latest release of 2 volumes of a magazine that he just released. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Tijani, for joining us. Yeah, we're going to have a session on op-ed writing, just the basics today. We want to gain some better understanding on how to communicate our ideas, out there, and particularly when it comes to policy issues that you're dealing with. Uh, in our countries, in our economies, and all other social spheres that we work in every day as a people. So, as usual, kindly remember to use your chat box to introduce yourself, to ask any questions you have, to maybe raise any concerns that you might be having throughout the process. Remember, again, as usual, we shall be sharing various links, so you can give us feedback on how the experience is going. So the secret code, the secret word for today is writing. The word writing, W-R-I. How do we write writing? Yeah, the word writing is our secret code or secret word for the day. So let me welcome Tijani so that he may take over. Karibu sana Tijani.
Karibu, Musila. Good evening. I hope everything is fine from your end. I'm very much excited to be facilitating this session, the art of the op-ed, and thank you for the invitation. So yeah, today I'll be taking the workshop or the session on the art of the op-ed, structure, techniques, and style. Basically, everything basics about op-ed. That's what we're doing today. So, which means by the end of this session, all participants should know or should have basic understanding of what op-ed is all about and how to write one, basically. So, after the session, you can build on the skills, having been introduced to the structure, to the techniques, and the style of writing an op-ed article. So, but if anybody talks about op-ed, what do we mean? And again, why should one write an op-ed article? I mean, basically, I'm asking the question, why are you here? Why do you want to write an op-ed? Why do you want to know the basics of an op-ed? So, but I understood that every person holds an idea on a particular topic. So if there's an issue or a policy in your country, you have an idea whether or not the policy is good or bad, whether or not the policy is pro people or anti people, whether it's going to be progressive or retrogressive. So you hold an idea or you hold an opinion on a particular policy in your country. But how do you go about
I understood that on a
this
particular
your
topic. So
idea?
if the issue, policy in your country, have an is good or bad, whether or not the policy is pro people or anti people. That is going to be
So if you hold an opinion or an idea about a particular policy, how do you communicate that idea or opinion to the people. It is through, authoritatively, it is through op-ed writing. And that's why you are here. And that's what I'll be doing. So, what is an op-ed? Op-ed is sometimes called opinion editorial in full. The first two letters of opinion and the first letters of editorial joined together is what gave us op-ed. And that is because during the early stage of newspaper, opinion being published as an editorial is often called an op-ed. But sometimes it is often referred to as an opinion published opposite the editorial page of a newspaper. So if you hold a newspaper, you see that the editorial of a newspaper is always published in the middle of a newspaper. So the opinion editorial will now be published, and opinion, the best opinion published in that newspaper will now be published opposite the editorial page. So it now got the name opposite the editorial page. So the first letters and the first letters of editorial gave us the name op-ed. So whatever the case, op-ed has transcend all those. Uh, that's transcend that. We now have opinion articles on online without a newspaper, without editorial. So in contemporary age, what we mean by op-ed is a short opinion article commenting on current events. Like, remember what I said, that if there's a new policy in your country and you have an opinion and you want to communicate that opinion to the people, a good way to do that is through op-ed. And that's this definition we just gave. Op-ed has become a short opinion article commenting on current events. So now these are the features that you'll be seeing as in an op-ed article. Op-ed article is written by outside contributors, not by publication staff. And it's basically 600 words, 600 to between 600 and 800 words. And of course, it depends on the publication you are setting or you want to publish your op-ed. So to dive deep into it, what are the general tips and tricks that you will be using when you're writing an op-ed? So the first thing to keep in mind is that op-ed, op-ed article is not always long. It's always short. Why? Because you want to communicate your ideas in a very short form as quickly as you can. You are not writing a book, you are not writing a research paper, you are not doing all those things. You just want somebody to understand your opinion on a particular topic. And that's why you have to keep the article short. So most commonly, it's always between 600 and 800 words. So another reason is that your readers have short attention spans. And even these days, most of your readers or most of your audience do not read your article or do not read past the first paragraph or the second paragraph. Most people do not read these days. So that's even gives you compelling reason why your article should be short. So, and another reason is that editor's attention is even shorter. So imagine an editor of an online newspaper that receives hundreds of pitches every week, and we need to read through all the pitches. But there you have an opinion on a particular topic, you want to communicate that opinion, and you are writing 2,000 words, 2,500 words, 1,500 words. So, it is not so much important to the newspaper. They will just ignore that particular article. But the opinion is not so much important to the newspaper as much as it's important to you. So that's why you have to keep your opinion piece short so that the editors will be able to check it. Another tips to keep in mind when you are writing an op-ed article is that make sure your piece is timely and don't be behind time. Like I mentioned, editor
Op-ed
receive
is sometimes called
editor receive about
opinion piece short
hundreds
so
of pieces
that
every
the
week.
editor will be able to check it.
And when they
Another
do this, you have to select or
to keep
choose the
in
one
mind
that
when
is most
writing an op-ed
important and relevant at that
Make
particular
sure
time.
your piece is timely and don't be
So
near time.
if
Like I mentioned,
your piece is not timely,
and
is not
you
giving relevance,
have to select your mind and relevant at that particular time. Like I mentioned, your piece is not timely and not. You have to select your mind and relevant at that particular time. Like I mentioned, your piece is not. You have to select your mind and relevant at that particular time.
so it is now up to you to make sure your article is timely and not behind times, because the news cycle moves fast and even editors' attention moves faster. So another tricks that you should take note when you are writing is your sentences, not only the whole article, your sentences has to be concise and precise. By precise, I mean go straight to the point. Do not beat about the bush. Do not say things that are not necessary in your article. Make sure you are brief, you're concise, and you hit the nail. You hit the nail. Do not go about the bush and be saying things that are not necessary in your article. So go straight to the point. You have something to say, just say it. Okay. So what are the elements of an op-ed? What are the things that you will see in an op-ed to know, okay, this is an op-ed, or this is how to go about writing my op-ed articles? The first thing, of course, you will see is your title. So you have to come up with a catchy title that captures the reader's attention. So how can you do this? Let's check through these examples of titles we have for op-ed article that I picked out. The first title you will see here is Philanthropic Contributions Keep Africa Poor. You see how concise it is. I mean, that's even the reason why I used it first. So, philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor. You can check out this article. You can type the headline on Google and search my name. It was published on Real Clear World. So, philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor. It's very short, concise, and precise. So if you just read this sentence, this headline, you will see that you will know and understand what I will be saying in the article. Shorting markets and displacing street traders will hurt Lagos economy. So if you read through these headlines, you will see how short and concise they are. So what are the rules you can follow to make sure you have this kind of headlines? The first rule I will tell you is always use active voice. So by telling you to use active voice, we're telling you to make sure a subject performs an action. There's a subject, there's an object, there's a verb that performs an action. So always use active voice. So let's go back to the samples we have. We said philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor. Here we have philanthropic contributions as the subject. Then we have keep Africa poor. It can be keep poor. So the verb here is keep poor. The subject here is philanthropic contributions. Then the object here is Africa. So we are saying Philanthropic contribution is the one performing the action. It's the one that is keeping Africa poor, right? And also, if you go to the second example we have, shorting markets and displacing street traders will hurt Lagos economy. We are saying that shorting markets, the act of shorting markets and displacing street traders, this is the act. What is this act going to do? We said it's going to hurt. So it is this act, this noun or subject in this case, that is performing an action. That is the one that is going to hurt Lagos economy. So if you read through the headlines, you will see that we have a subject performing an action. This is how your headline should read. Your headline should always read active voice. So avoid unnecessary adjective. By unnecessary, I mean the one that does adjective that does not serve any purpose in the headline. So let's go back to the samples we have. Philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor. So we have philanthropic as an adjective here, but this is a necessary adjective. If you say contributions keep Africa poor, it is too general. What kind of contributions are we talking about? But philanthropic contributions keep Africa. Philanthropic contributions make it precise. Now, if you now want to be extravagant and you are introducing new adjective like saying European philanthropic contributions or European philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor. So by adding European, you are adding adjective that is not necessary here. Even though it's relevant, it's not necessary because, okay, of course, I'm talking about how European countries are sending money to Africa and it's keeping Africa poor. So if I decide to add it in the headline and say European philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor, it's going to be precise, it's relevant, but it's totally unnecessary. It's totally unnecessary because by saying philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor, I already made it more precise as I can. And don't forget, I'm trying to make sure to be concise and to keep the headline short. So let's check the second headline. Shorting markets and displacing street traders will hurt Lagos economy. Shorting markets and displacing street traders will hurt Lagos economy. So this one, don't even have adjective here. Okay, let's say we have adjective Lagos. We have adjective here, Lagos. So if you say shorting markets and displacing street traders will hurt economy, it's not complete. I mean, which economy are you talking about? We have over 100 economies in the world. So which economy are you talking about? It's okay, it's Lagos economy. So the adjective here is necessary. There are other adjectives you can add that will be relevant but not necessary. So you can use adjective, but only use necessary adjective. So avoid articles, article A and D, avoid them where you can. So if you follow these rules that I just stated now, these three rules, your article or your headline is going to be short, your title is going to be short and concise, and make sure you are passing a message. Don't be suspenseful. Don't create a suspense. So you will see some headlines where it's suspenseful, like clickbait. Don't create headline that is clickbait. We want it to be catchy, yes, but don't make it clickbait. Make sure it's passing a message, complete message, like philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor. Complete message. Shorting markets and displacing street traders will hurt Lagos economy. Complete sentence and complete message. Make sure your headline or your title is passing the message. Good. So after a headline, what's the next thing you will see? Next thing you will see in an op-ed article is lead. The lead is always the first punchy sentence that signals the topic at hand. It reaches out and grabs the reader's attention. So that's what your lead does. Your lead will quickly grab your reader's attention, introduces them to the topic of the whole article, and make it punchy. make it punchy. So it's like telling them something they don't already know. Because if I'm reading the article and the first thing I'm seeing is what I already know, I mean, it's not interesting. You are telling me what I already know. Tell me something I do not know. Tell me something I do not know. So that's exactly what your lead should do. Your lead should tell your audience what they don't already know, and that's exactly what you are trying to do. So let's check out these examples. The lead in the article we are using as example, now philanthropic contributions keep Africa poor. The lead we are using here, I mean, the lead in that article is humanitarian aid to Africa has become a fruitless effort as regular offerings go towards feeding the starving population without lasting results. But prominent international groups seem blind to its futility. So here you are arguing that humanitarian aid to Africa is now a fruitless effort because most of the offerings feed the starving population and there's no results. So you are actually going to be telling your audience what they don't already know. You are introducing them to the topic, to the whole idea of your article, and you are making sure you are grabbing their attention in the process. So let's check the second lead we have for the article I wrote. The article titled "Can the Judiciary Save Nigeria's Democracy?" So I wrote that if the court is the last hope for the common man, then Nigeria is in trouble. A history of corruption and judgment based on technicalities, evidence calls into question the reliability of the Nigerian judiciary. So if you know what is happening in Nigeria at that point in time, if you read this lead, you understand the whole idea of the is to say Nigerian judiciary, to say the uncertainty of Nigerian judiciary to dish out this. So if you have your lead, congratulations. Now you go to thesis. But before thesis, that is what we call news peg. I don't have it here. News peg is makes your article relevant, makes your news relevant. What is relevant? What are you tying to your article? Why are you writing it now? Why? Why is this relevant now? That's what I mean by news spec. So news spec is what's the recent occurrence that prompted you to think about the strategy, and it's also what you are using to tell your audience to read your article now. If I'm writing about philanthropic contributions, how philanthropic contributions is keeping Africa poor. This is not the first time European countries are sending contributions. I mean, they are sending aid to Africa. This is not the first time. I mean, it's been happening for decades, several decades for that matter. So why am I writing about it now, and why should my audience care about it now? And that's exactly what you'll be doing in your news spec. Immediately after your lead, you quickly bring about why. Why now? Why are you writing about it now? What just happened? What prompted you to think about this topic at this particular time? And that's exactly what you are telling your audience to read. Why you want your audience to read it now. So if you are done with your news peg, then you go to the thesis, which is the main argument of your piece. So you will see the argument is in bold, like stress on argument. Why? Because your thesis has to be argumentative. You have to think about your thesis as a debate. So if you are arguing in support of a motion or in support of a policy, your opponent or somebody somewhere should be able to argue against that particular policy. Should be able to argue about that particular opinion. So let's say I argue, okay, philanthropic contributions is keeping Africa poor. Somebody somewhere will say, no, philanthropic contributions is not keeping Africa poor. It's keeping Africa, it's making Africa rich. then you do not actually have a thesis. So let's check out some of the theses we have in this article. Philanthropic collaborations Africa Poor. You will see a place where check the last two sentences we have in this paragraph. This paragraph where so check the last two paragraphs. The last two sentences. If you check the last two sentences, you will read that it reads that in order to establish sustainable economic prosperity in African nations, foreign countries must stop sending aid. In order to establish sustainable economic prosperity in African nations, foreign countries must stop sending aid. So someone somewhere can say, no, in order to establish sustainable economic prosperity in African nations, foreign countries must continue sending aid. You see, it's argumentative. Somebody can argue for, and another person can argue against. And that's when you will know you have a good thesis. The best way to help, and last sentence reads, the best way to help African populations is to stop financially coddling their economies, forcing them to rebuild their economic capacity on their own. This is my argument. Somebody somewhere can say, no, the best way to help African populations is to continue coddling their economies and build their economy together. So your thesis has to be argumentative. So the funniest part about the thesis is that it is the first thing you write down when you are thinking about a particular topic. Thesis is the first thing you will write down. It's not your outline, it's not your title, it's not your news peg, it's not your lead. The first thing you are going to write down when you are writing an op-ed article is your thesis, because your thesis is going to give you the arguments. That what is your argument? What is your argument in this policy? Okay, there's a tax law, there's a new tax law. So what's your argument about this tax law? This tax law is repressive because it increases tax or more tax. Introduction of new taxes on different areas of the economy will create retrogressive effect. That's your argument. That's your thesis. Somebody will say, no, new introduction of new taxes on different areas of the economy is good for is good for the economy and will boost government revenue. So now that's a debate. You argue for, somebody else argue against. Unless you have your thesis, you cannot develop your points and you cannot have a defense. So that's why everybody agrees that the first thing you are going to be writing down when you want to write an op-ed article is your thesis. So you can consider thesis as the heart of an op-ed. You consider the title as the head of the op-ed. You consider the lead as the eyes of the op-ed or face of the op-ed, because it's when you see the face, then your thesis is the heart of your op-ed. After you are done with your thesis, then you go to the body, which is like the meat of the op-ed, as they call it. So in the body of your op-ed, in the body of your article, what you have basically is you have come up with this controversial topic, controversial thesis, which you know is controversial. Somebody can argue against it. So how do you want to defend yourself? How? And that's exactly what you'll be doing in the body. You have to defend yourself as much as you can. You have to defend yourself with statistics, with studies, research paper, research works, experts' opinion, statement of facts, what people know to be true. You can even use personal anecdotes. If you have personal experience, or somebody have experience, you can use the anecdotes. So the main point is that you are here to defend your argument. So, and this is where it gets tricky. When you are defending your argument, you have to be readable. You don't just jam pack everything without order in the body. So, the body of a human is arranged Each body is placed in that is supposed to be. Imagine our hearts is below our abdomen, or imagine the intestine is right on our nose or right on our jugular. So, I mean, you couldn't imagine how it will look like. But if you check the body, if you look at the body of human being, all those parts are placed at this perfect place where it's supposed to be, and that's exactly what the body of your pet must look like. It has to be in order. One sentence must lead to the other, must lead to the other, must lead to the other. Another, I mean, a paragraph must not come before a paragraph that is supposed to be after. So you should not use the last paragraph at the first, do not use the first paragraph at the last. Do not use the last sentence first and don't use the first sentence last. So it has to be arranged. And this is a skill that you have to build by yourself by writing. But let me give you instances. So check this, check the body of, or part of the body of the article about the philanthropic contributions. So we read that for decades, foreign nations have sent trillions of dollars to African countries in the form of private donations, government agency grants, and international loans. In fact, between 2015 and 2020 alone, sub-Saharan African countries received $308 billion in donations. As of 2021, African countries' external debt totaled $644 billion, and 22 of these countries were at risk of or facing debt distress. So now, if you read this paragraph very well, you will see that from the very first sentence of the paragraph, I was trying to lead to something. I was going somewhere because I have to give overview of the fact that African countries have received trillions of dollars from foreign nations. And now then I started from general. That look, this is a statement of fact we are talking about. It's a fact that trillions of dollars have been sent to African countries. That's a fact. Then I now bring statistics. That's I move from general to specific. From general to specifics. So the general is that, and the statement of fact is that trillions of dollars have been sent to African countries. And that's specifically between 2015 and 2020 alone, sub-Saharan African countries received 308 billion donations. That's, I now went deep and say, as of 2021, these countries' external debt total 644 billion. But not only that, 22 of these countries were at risk of facing debt distress. So see all these efforts to do for what? Just to be able to prove that African countries have received debt, have received aid and are now facing a risk of debt distress. That's the effort I put in this paragraph, just to prove one thing. Then the second paragraph reads that Africa remains the poorest continent in the world. So imagine I started with African countries, that Africa remains the poorest country in the world. Imagine I started with that one. If I say African country remains the poorest country in the world without giving context, it's going to demolish my argument. My argument may fall apart. So, but I've given context that look, we have received so many trillions of dollars. We have received trillions of dollars from outsiders in form of aid, in form of grants and loans, that we are even at the risk of debt distress. Despite all of this money, Africa remains the poorest continent in the world. That's the point. That's where I'm going. That despite all this money, Africa still remains the poorest continent in the world. So whoever is reading this, you have already given context that if aid makes a continent rich, Africa should be the richest continent. If aid makes a continent rich, Africa should be the richest continent, because we've received so much money and yet we remain the poorest continent in the world. Then I didn't stop there and continued that Mr. Moyo, a Zambian-born economist and author, argued that over $1 trillion in development-related aid sent to Africa over the past 50 years has failed to help the recipients out of poverty. So I've used the statement of facts, I've used data and statistics, I've used now I use experts' opinion. So I'm saying, okay, you know what? Even if you don't believe me, even if if you think this is a kind of unfortunate incident that just happened, which may not be the case, which may not be the true nature of incidents. I mean, the situation could be reversed or could be different. There is an expert who has studied this situation, and these are verdicts. It says $1 trillion in development-related aid sent to Africa over the past 50 years has failed to help the recipients out of poverty. So you have to put in effort to prove your point. That's the main thing. You want to prove your point. Why? Why is this happening? So, when you are writing the body of your page, you have to. By that I mean you don't sound boring. You don't sound boring, and so and so. So the national. Don't just say the national debt is 7 trillion, for instance. Don't say the Nigerian national debt, for instance, is 7. Don't say that. If you want to make it interesting, you will say every man, woman, and child owe 423,000 naira to pay off our national debt. So I didn't see this anywhere. This is what I saw. This is data. I now divided this 87 trillion by the Nigerian population, or estimated population, and this is what it gave. So I went extra length because I don't want to sound boring. I want to sound interesting. So every man, woman, and child in Nigeria will owe $423,000 to pay off our national debt. You see? So, and if anybody should hear this, they will be interested. Wow, when did I borrow 423,000 naira? I mean, I didn't borrow any money. Why should I pay off something I didn't borrow? So most importantly, when you are writing a body and other parts of your page, make sure you pay attention to wording. You want to make it conversational because you see, remember I said this is an argument. You are arguing for something. So opinions are conversational in tone. You want anyone reading your piece to be able to follow what you are saying without having to do any mental gymnastics. Do not leave anything to your reader's interpretation. If you mention the name of a person, explain who that person is. Just like I mentioned Dami Samoyo. I said Dami Samoyo is Zambian-born economist. So because just say Dami Samoyo says, who is Dami Samoyo, for goodness sake? I do not know. You need to tell your readers. Do not leave it. Do not conclude as if they know what or who that person is or what the jargons you've written. Don't use jargons. If you have to use the jargon, you have to explain what it means. So now, imagine this sentence, this paragraph. This is a paragraph, for goodness sake. A paragraph. Many African leaders have fostered a damaging dependence on aid from developed nations, neglecting their own economic responsibilities and perpetuating a cycle of poverty. Instead of prioritizing self-sufficiency and accountability, they continue to rely on external handouts which only serve to reinforce poor governance and hinder meaningful progress. This reliance on foreign aid undermines the potential for domestic development and perpetuates a system of economic exploitation. It is imperative for African leaders to break free from this cycle and focus on building sustainable, self-reliant economies that truly serve the interests of their people. Now, this is a paragraph telling us that African leaders are fond of depending on developed nations, but the good thing they can do is to severe ties with this aid and build the economy on their own. That's what this paragraph is trying to say, and use all this big English. Now, alternatively, you can write it this way. Why most African leaders look to developed nations for humanitarian assistance? These ties keep the continent dependent by allowing its national government to avoid economic responsibility. In fact, these donations have been instrumental in perpetuating poor economic policies, further provide further impoverishing the people. So, I mean, you are literally saying the same thing in the first paragraph and the second paragraph. So why go through or why go through all the efforts or troubles to have so many words, hyperloading words, long sentences, long paragraphs, why you can make it short. So always go for short version. So when you are done with your body of the article, you go to the conclusion. So by the time you are in the conclusion, most of your audience, most of your readers will not remember over 70% of what they have read. But your conclusion is an opportunity for you to refresh their memory and give them something that they will not forget. And that's what you will do. You'll be doing your conclusion. You have to give a call to action. If you are condemning the policy, government policy is always about solving a problem. So if you are condemning a policy, you have to provide an alternative. Alternatively, this is what government should be doing to solve this problem. Because you cannot just say the problem, the solution will not work and you not provide alternative. So you have to provide an alternative, and you have to make sure you summarize every piece of your argument. Otherwise, your audience will have forgotten most of what they read. So see for instance. So the conclusion example we have here about the humanitarian philanthropic aid. Foreign nations need to stop their guilt-driven humanitarian crusade in Africa, because fruitless aid has only ever allowed selfish politicians to practice corruption and regressive economic policies that have further impoverished African nations. Summary, this is what you are saying in the article. So what follows when you are done with conclusion is your bio. So some people will say, why is bio important? Bio is important because you are trying to establish expertise in the subject. You are trying to establish the fact that you have authority, you have knowledge about the subject. So you can do this in different ways. In different ways. So, for instance, you can do this by telling us that you've written on a similar topic in the past. You can tell us by saying you have a educational background on the topic. You can tell us that you have a professional background on the topic. Or, of course, you can tell us that you've written similar things in the past. So, if you don't have educational background or professional background, you can tell us the fact that you've written similar articles in the past on reputable platforms. So this is what I see in my bio. If I write an article for a platform and I use this bio, I'll say Abdul Ziyani is the managing editor of The Liberalist, a proof magazine based in Nigeria. His political commentary has appeared in Real Clear World, National Policy Digest, and African Liberty. So you see, so I was establishing the fact that I'm editor of a proof magazine, so I promote freedom. And secondly, that I have published political commentary on reputable platforms like Real Clear World, International Policy Digest, and also African Liberty. So a couple of things to note. Get permission to use institutional affiliations. So for instance, if I use African Liberty now, it's because African Liberty has given us permission to use the organization as an affiliation. For instance, if I say, okay, I'm an alumni of African Liberty, because African Liberty has given us permission to use them as an alumni. If I say I'm an editor of the Liberalist has given me permission to use the Liberalist as an affiliation. So past publications establish credibility. I think that's what we already said. And of course, you can provide links to where they can reach out to you. And this is where it gets interesting. Take editing seriously. Take editing seriously because you will not get it right in your first draft. Can take my word for it. Most established writers, even established writers, do not always publish their first draft. So if you write an article and it sucks, it's not reading well, believe me, you are doing well. The only thing you need to do is to edit it. So take editing seriously. Do not write your first draft and send it to the editor and say editor's work is to edit. No. Editor's work is not to edit your first draft. Editor's work is to edit your polished draft. So the responsibility of polishing your draft is yours and yours alone. And as a matter of fact, the beauty of writing is in writing. So when you are done writing your article and you want to pitch it to a reputable platform, so that's a way you can couch your email and give the editor edge start on what your article is about. So this example I will share with you. So you use the headline or title of your article in the subject of the email. You can write pitch to notify the editor that this is a pitch. Pitch column philanthropic collaborations keep Africa poor. Pitch column then the headline or title of your article. Then you say, hi editor, I'm Ablai Tijani. Then you introduce yourself. Then the topic, I just finished writing an opinion piece about the recent humanitarian aid sent to East and Central Africa. So the recent humanitarian aid sent to East and Central Africa is the news spec. So that's what triggers me to write the article. Then you go straight to the thesis. Why more aid to Africa seems like a helping hand to the African people. For over 5 decades, it has done more harm than good. In my piece, I proposed an alternative way for African people to deal with their problem without relying on African aids that have refused to yield results. Does it sound like it has potential for publication on African Liberty? Let me know what you think. Best Abdullah. Or alternatively, you can say, please let me know if this has a potential for publication on so. Let me know what you think, Abdullah. Best. So see how we go from subject, introduction, topic, thesis, and question. This is general advice or rules by George Orwell on to write. So he gave the advice of the rules in his book Politics and the English Language. George Orwell says, never use a metaphor, a simile, or other figure of speech which you are used to seeing in print. So do not say because a metaphor is popular, everybody's using it and you are using it too. Believe me, it does not sound right in writing. Do not use them. Yeah, do not use it. According to George Orwell. Never use a long word where a short word we do. So this is not only about long word. Don't use a long sentence where a short word we do. Do not use a long paragraph where a short one we do. If it is possible to cut a word out, always cut it out. Yes, because the same way a work of art, the same way a drawing does not have unnecessary lines. Imagine somebody wants to draw you and they are giving you beard and you don't have beard. Imagine somebody is drawing you and you don't have too much of eyelashes and they are adding layers of eyelashes for you. They are drawing you for goodness sake. They are not. This is not an imaginative. This is not an imaginative drawing. This is not an imagination. So the same way, work of art does not have unnecessary drawings, unnecessary marks, unnecessary dots. The same way, writings does not have unnecessary words, unnecessary sentence, unnecessary paragraph. So never use passive where you can use active. So here we are saying, we already concluded you should be using active voice in your headline, your title. So even in the body of your article, from the lead, news peg, the thesis, the body of your article conclusion, always use active. Only where you cannot use active, then you cannot use passive. So never use foreign phrase, a scientific word, or a jargon word you if you can think of an everyday English equivalent. And lastly, break any of these rules and say anything outside the powers. So if you be following these rules to the latter would make you say something barbarous, make sure you break any of these rules. So I know you are here because you want to express yourself, you have some ideas you want to communicate to the public. And believe me, one of the best way to do that is through page writing. And after completing this training, I can only tell you that write. Do not let anything stop you forward. Do not let anything stop you. You've done oped writing training, you know the basics, you know what to do, you know where to start, you know when to end. And yeah, just go there and write and express yourself. So, thank you very much. This is the end of the session. So, if there's any question, I'm happy to take them. Musla, are you there? Musla, are you there? I can't hear.
Me right?